Well, look, sometimes if you look at Mugabe, he's so old, and if I compare Mugabe with my grandfather, who actually died at 90 years old, I can tell that he is no longer in control. And that's a fact. People can deny it. Those that are in support of Mugabe can deny it, but it's a fact he's no longer in control. And what it means, therefore, with a young wife at 52 years old, definitely that wife is in control. Because I remember there is an instance where I was at home in their Congress in Harare, and the president openly said, look, I've been asked to sit down by my wife, and this is what my wife does at home. So that on its own shows that he is not in control. So therefore that woman is in control. He is saying what he believes should be done because he's in control.
And would that suggest then that she wants the president to name her as the successor?
Well, I don't want to endorse that, but I suspect that's what she wants. And if you look at what is happening on the ground in Zimbabwe, I also suspect that, look, that could be the reason why she's saying that.
There's always the issue of succession, because talking about it, I mean, there are lots of similarities with what is happening in Uganda. You have a very powerful first lady being very close to the president. He or she is even a minister of education, a very powerful ministry at that. The issue of succession has always come up, and it's always controversial whenever it does come up. And therefore my question to you was, hearing this coming from Grace Mugabe at this particular moment in time, is it telling? Could that provide some hope for Zimbabweans? Because then, if it is out of President Mugabe's hands, then probably it is clear you can start sort of patching your future based on that.
Well, to me, I say it is positive for us as an opposition. One, I can imagine Mugabe is a strong man in Zimbabwe. He has perfected this system, and with Grace saying what he's saying is actually, furthering the division within the ruling party. And once the ruling party goes to an election, weak as it is going to be, if, let's assume, Grace has been elected, I can see a plus for the opposition. I can see, particularly my party, I can see a plus in that one. And I can see an opportunity that we can actually grab with both hands.
No, but the opposition has been very divided, and that's why you were not able probably to bring the force. The Arthur Mutambara faction, the Changirai faction, there were moments when you thought actually the MDC was just, on the verge of getting it right, and then divisions come in. The opposition is not as organized as it should be.
Well, I don't think so. That's a perception by the media that there is a division that can actually curtail the opposition to get into power. Just to give an example, in 2008, after a serious split that had taken place in 2005 within the opposition, the same opposition beat Mugabe hands down, only to invoke a law that had already been there in the constitution, but that had never been applied. They had to invoke the 50+1% law because they had lost an election. So it means if we could do it in 2008 after a serious split that had taken place in 2005, I don't see any other split that is destructive to the opposition as the split of 2005. And I don't see any Zimbabweans who would actually hold on the issue of the division within the opposition. All what Zimbabweans need to do right now is to say, okay, our focus is to make sure that we identify the closest person who can actually defeat Mugabe, and we all focus one direction so that we can remove Mugabe. And once we remove Mugabe, we will then deal with the issue of the divided opposition. Because I don't think the opposition is losing because of division. That is not true. The opposition could be losing out of other tricks that are particularly used in Zimbabwe. For an example, in 2013 elections, we've got the ZANU-PF hired a special, company that is known the world over of tampering with electoral processes in other countries. And that company is Nikuv. As we speak right now, that Nikuv is operating in Zimbabwe, is actually based in one of the biggest army barracks in Zimbabwe, and they are actually trying to involve themselves in the new biometric system that is taking place in Zimbabwe. Those are the things that we are saying. The rigging process comes through those things. But we have put in mechanism this time around that, look, it is not only the polling agents of a particular party that has got to monitor the elections. It has got to be every person who casts his vote to say, okay, I want to monitor my own personal vote. How do I do that? When my vote is being counted, I need to be there to witness the counting process. And once that is done in every polling station, there is no amount of rigging that can happen in the watchful eye of every voter.
Is there a sort of a uniting candidate that the opposition might be able to front?
Well,
is Shangri still as popular as he was?
Well, personally, I believe he's still as popular as he was. Because if he was not popular as he was, I don't think ZANU-PF would be worried about him. The fact that they are worried about him, he's as popular as he was. And remember, yes, I know the danger with Africa is we always focus on an individual when it comes to an election. But in this case, in MDC, yes, we've got a leader that we have in the form of Morgan Tsvangirai. But we are saying MDC as a political party should be the one that identifies all of us together. And once we identify ourselves with MDC, surely I don't see any reason why MDC should lose elections.
Finally, your own words on the future of Zimbabwe. Where do you see Zimbabwe going, given what you've been through?
Well, look, I've been through a lot. I've seen Zimbabwe before independence. I've seen Zimbabwe after independence, and I've participated in politics before independence, and I'm still participating in politics after independence. I can see a better Zimbabwe once the guerrilla movement party, has been defeated. Because look, when they took over the country, Zimbabwe had one of the strongest economies, not only in Africa, but in the world. And when they took over the country, Zimbabwe had the strongest currency, not only in Africa, but in the world. And what has since happened since then, it shows that the current crop of politicians are not good enough to, lead that country and create a better future for all Zimbabweans. And my belief is, therefore, because of that weakness, Zimbabweans have got to press up and say, okay, let's try the one that we have not seen and find out whether he's going to be able to turn the fortunes of the country. And secondly, we've got a new constitution that only gives each a person who wins elections only 2 terms in office. Therefore, that means you are actually giving that person only 10 years to make sure that he proves himself that he's worth why he's being voted for. And secondly, my belief is once you manage to remove a regime or outvote the ruling party, the people will gain confidence. And once people gain confidence, it will be easy for them to change leaders as and when they feel that the leaders are not performing to their expectations.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And just for the record, I'd like you to say